We're going to break down that hour and 17 minutes with our political panel. From our Washington bureau, Rory Cooper is a Republican strategist and managing director at Purple Strategies. And Joel Payne is a former Clinton campaign senior aide. Gentlemen, welcome to you both.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with you, Rory. And the first extended remarks from the president about the resignation of National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. You're also going to hear the president's comments on reports of campaign aides' contacts with Russia. Let's take a listen.
Mike Flynn is a fine person, and I asked for his resignation. And I don't think he did anything wrong. If anything, he did something right. He was coming into office. He looked at the information. He said, that's fine. That's what they're supposed to do. But he didn't tell the Vice President of the United States the facts, and then he didn't remember. And that just wasn't acceptable to me.
Can you say whether you are aware that anyone who advised your campaign had contacts with Russia during the course of the election?
Well, I told you, General Flynn obviously was dealing, so that's one person, but he was dealing as he should have been.
During the election?
No, nobody that I know of. Nobody.
So you're not aware of any contacts during the course of the election?
How many times do I have to answer this question?
Can you just say
Russia
yes or no
is
on
a
it?
ruse. Russia is fake news. This is fake news put out by the media.
All right, Rory, do you think that the president's response there addressed enough of the outstanding questions to close the book on this?
Well, no, of course not. Listen, it was. It can't be a real leak and fake news at the same time. I think everybody in Washington agrees on that. And what you saw today, listen, I have to say one nice thing about him before I launch into everything else. He did take 17 questions in over an hour. And back in President Obama's day, that probably would have been 3 questions in an hour. So we'll give him that. But what we saw today was a display of good chaos and bad chaos. No matter what, this White House has chaos. The bad chaos is what you saw with Flynn, that answer, what's happening with Russia, their inability to control this story, and really their inability to staff up the White House with people who can give the president good counsel, good advice, and frankly, ease the anxiety of a lot of Americans right now. The good chaos is that President Trump was speaking to his base today. He was, the White House is spinning out of control. They're losing control of their message. And so what's he do? He calls a hastily formed press conference right before he's about to go get out to give a political rally. He's returning to his roots, the things that he was comfortable with during the campaign. I think that'll help his supporters feel like he's on the attack again. But for the rest of the people who didn't come in 100% behind him, there was no confidence given in this press conference.
Joel, let me ask you, the president also offered a response to reports that progress in his administration had been slow. Here's a clip.
I inherited a mess. It's a mess. At home and abroad, a mess. We have made incredible progress. I don't think there's ever been a president elected who in this short period of time has done what we've done. Plants and factories are already starting to move back into the United States, and big league, Ford, General Motors, so many of them. I'm making this presentation directly to the American people with the media present, which is an honor to have you. This morning, because many of our nation's reporters and folks will not tell you the truth. Unfortunately, much of the media in Washington, D.C., along with New York, Los Angeles in particular, speaks not for the people, but for the special interests and for those profiting off a very, very obviously broken system.
So, Joel, we heard President Trump put some blame on President Obama and also on the media. You think it's a sustainable strategy for a president to blame his predecessor?
No, it's not, Elaine. And look, I think most people understand that President Trump was using this as a matter of deflection. Chaos is a strategy. He had a bad week of news. He had all of the information that came out regarding General Flynn. He's had a lot of bad news about his travel ban. And to me, this is a strategy by the president to take everybody off the mark from focusing on all the chaos that has ensued in his administration. And I think the president has relied on this strategy. I think, frankly, it's been the engine to the success of his political career. He has always shown to be somebody who, when when everything else is blustery and stormy. He is able to operate better than most. But I think chaos is his strategy. I do think that reporters did a very good job of holding him to account today. We saw a live fact check. We saw people actually questioning the things that he was saying with actual facts. So I think it was not a good day for the president, but I think it was a strategy. It was a strategic objective that the White House tried to employ to move everybody off the mark.
Rory, the president also cited a Rasmussen poll showing his job approval at 55%, though most polls, including two released the same day as that Rasmussen poll, showed him closer to 40%. Do you think expanding his base of support is a priority in any way for the president?
Well, it has to be if he's going to have a presidential agenda. But look, that's two things. One, I inherited a mess was a cornerstone of President Obama's message for 8 years. So I'm going to give Donald Trump a pass there because we've been hearing it from the last president for 8 years as well. But he is going to have to expand his audience if he's going to help Congress get items like tax reform, healthcare reform, or this infrastructure package that he seems to want off the ground. Unfortunately, this isn't the way to expand the audience. This is the way to try to solidify your base. Ever since Election Day, the polls have shown weakening popularity numbers for him. What you're seeing is that when you're not lining him up next to Hillary Clinton, his numbers go down. The people that that were with him because they felt she was simply disqualified from being president are now skeptical over his ability to run the government. And he's not giving them any evidence to say to not be skeptical. He needs to start actually doing that by actions, not by press conferences or rallies, although that will help his base. He needs to actually show that he can competently govern from the White House.
Well, one of the big headlines from this news conference, Mr. Trump outlined his next steps in the fight over his immigration ban. Let's take a listen.
Extreme vetting will be put in place, and it already is in place in many places. In fact, we had to go quicker than we thought because of the bad decision we received. I think that circuit is in chaos, and that circuit is frankly in turmoil. But we are appealing that, and we are going further. We're issuing a new executive action next week that will comprehensively protect our country. The new order is going to be very much tailored to what I consider to be a very bad decision, but we can tailor the order to that decision and get just about everything, in some ways more, but we're tailoring it now to the decision. We have some of the best lawyers in the country working on it.
All right, so I want to get both your takes on this. Joel, let me start with you. What is the significance, you think, of the path that the White House is now taking on this?
Well, the significance is that they understand that the courts are not going to allow them to move forward with the executive order from 2 weeks ago. Look, the president has learned a lot in these first 4 weeks of his presidency, and I think what he's learning day by day is that there is no, he does not have supremacy over the other branches of government. He's got to play ball with everybody else, that this is not the campaign anymore, that he can't stand on stage and dictate to everybody and have everything go his way, that he's got to consider the courts. He's got to consider his allies on Capitol Hill. There's a number of Republicans that have started to peel off support from the president, and that's got to be something that's very concerning to him. So I believe that the president realizes that the first go at the executive order did not work. I do think you'll see a more targeted approach. I do think you'll probably see a lot more interaction with Congress, and we'll see how that goes. We'll see if that passes the muster with the courts.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Rory? Do you think that the process of this rollout for this next executive order will be different?
Yeah, I think it will. Listen, President Trump is a golfer. He's taking a mulligan. I think a lot of people have been advising him to do so for at least a week now. This is the right approach. I think that the court got some things right, got a lot of things wrong. That circuit court actually is overruled quite often. President Trump's right about that. But the rollout was a disaster. The green card holders, people who are en route to this country, those things obviously deflected away from some of the more substantive parts of the executive order that frankly weren't far out of line with what President Obama has done. I think if they had a competent staff around him right now, that they would be making the argument that a lot of the things that he's doing are actually in similar ways to what President Obama was doing in his final 2 years in office. So hopefully the next executive order is the right approach. It's in line with the Constitution, that they're able to explain it appropriately without causing more anxiety or fear amongst people who are living legally within the United States. And then we can move on. I think his big problem on Capitol Hill is actually going to be the same problem that Republicans have been grappling with for years, which is immigrants who have lived here since they were babies, who have no other country to call home, but are not naturalized citizens. And that's where I think you're going to see some dissension in the ranks amongst Republicans.
Yeah, and the president talked about how that's a difficult aspect of the immigration issue for him. Let me ask you, though, the president also described his administration so far as productive and successful, but he talked about the opposition that he's facing to cabinet picks from Democrats. Why do you think he is drawing attention to that, Joel?
Well, he's drawing attention to that because he has had a bad rollout. I mean, let's face it, the president is a very good salesperson. We know about his career in business, but unfortunately, he's not going to be able to just slap a Trump brand on this and say that this has been a good rollout. It hasn't been. Yes, he's faced some opposition on his picks, no different than any other president. President Obama, Tom Daschle, went through the same thing that Andrew Putzer just went through. Mike Flynn. There have been other examples of this. So I don't think the president can rely on that as a crutch. I do think that Rory makes a great point about the White House staff. One of the things that I have been really struck by is just how unimpressive they have been. They have not protected this president. They have not given this president an opportunity to get off to the type of start that his supporters would have hoped he would have.
Rory, I'll give you the last word here. What do you think about the point that Joel just made, but also the notion that there is, a claim of accomplishment on the one hand, but also blaming the Democrats when it comes to these cabinet picks on the other?
Well, listen, of course the Democrats are going to oppose cabinet picks. Republicans will oppose Democratic picks. The difference is whether or not you can get your people across the line. I think that the labor secretary issue was, a source of poor vetting and probably sloppy vetting. But for the most part, President Trump has actually developed a pretty good, experienced cabinet that is actually helping bring a lot of Republicans, including myself, who have severe anxiety over a Trump administration, to feel a little bit of ease. I think that will be the case. If you look at the Supreme Court pick for Gorsuch going through, you're looking at possibly getting 60 votes there without even having to worry about a filibuster on the Senate or having to change the Senate rules. So I actually think that on that line, Senator Mitch McConnell has been a huge help, and the Congress has been able to help President Trump deliver on most of the cabinet picks and probably most of the remaining ones from here on out.
Okay, and Rory, on the issue of his cabinet, his staff serving him well, what would you say to that?
Well, it's early, right? We have to let these cabinet secretaries get into office, be able to develop their own staffs, figure out what the agenda is. Frankly, that's a problem President Trump has yet to articulate. He didn't articulate in the campaign like most presidents do. But we know that Tom Price is going to have to deal with Obamacare at HHS. We know that we're going to be looking at immigration at Homeland Security. They're going to have to start giving the president wise counsel, and hopefully, I hope, and we have to pray that he will listen to that counsel, and we can have a government that's functioning and is keeping us safe and is growing an economy the way all Republicans and conservatives hope right now.
All right, Rory Cooper and Joel Payne in Washington. Thanks to you both.
Thank
you. Good to be with you.